Item number 9, Trapping Regulation Committee report, Commissioner McNinch. The Commission will hear a report from the Trapping Regulation Committee Chairman and may take action on any recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Trapping Regulation Committee did conduct a meeting last Friday, June 15th, and that was in coordination or in conjunction with a field trip that was conducted on the 14th. The meeting was held in Las Vegas, and the intent was the trapping regulation stuff is there's a lot going on with it right now, and so I'll try to frame it up and put it in perspective for everybody. We have the Senate Bill 226 requirements. The mandates of Senate Bill 226 are floating around out there. We're going to hear more about that later on today. That'll go through a similar hearing, a first reading, if you will, an informational, a regulation workshop. And it's separate than what we were addressing down in Las Vegas, although it was included as part of a report. There's a number, gosh, I feel like it's hard to explain because there's so many things. The department has some stuff that they're bringing forward at this meeting. We have Senate Bill 226 stuff that's pending as part of a regulatory language that we have pending. We have information that we're trying to gather regarding some of the specific areas, the local areas down in the Las Vegas area, Southern Nevada, specifically Mountain Springs area, the Red Rock Conservation Area, and Mount Charleston. We've kind of broken that up into one particular issue. And then we have the broader issue of what else is on everybody's mind, okay? And some examples of that would be visitation, registration. Those are things that have been brought up at the Las Vegas meeting. There was a little bit of the trappers had commented on they would like to talk about some of the closed areas, reopening those. So these are the things that are kind of hitting the table. And the focus that of the Las Vegas meeting, although some of these other things were on the agenda, was primarily to discuss some of the local issues down there, Mount Charleston area, Mountain Springs area, and Red Rock Conservation area. How to handle those up in Northern Nevada, up in Washoe County. We had kind of had a similar situation with some of our trails in the Washoe County area, Jones Creek, Whites Creek, and Thomas Creek, that we had taken some action on to kind of address some interface issues, some multiple use issues. So the same concepts applying to this area. The committee met. Ron Lurie was not available, but Tom Padden was there. Jeremy and Jack were there, myself. The department took us around with the help of Tom Padden, who's familiar with the local area, to these localized areas so that we could be a little more familiar with what we were looking at. The trappers also put on kind of an educational workshop, if you will, where they had basically asked, if you're going to be getting involved in the trapping issues, allow us an opportunity to explain to you what equipment we use and why. So they did that. And all in all, I thought our tour on the 14th, which we were out, we got back to the rooms about 10:30 that night, 10:30 or so. It was very productive, I thought. We got a lot of information out of it as an individual. It was very beneficial to see these areas, hear specifically what was going on, and I got a lot out of it. I think the other committee members did as well. Put things in perspective for us. During the meeting, there was no action taken to send anything to the commission at this particular commission. There was action. We did take action to direct staff to put together try to put some language on paper pertinent to the discussions that were occurring in the meeting room. We actually had several interest groups sitting down at a table looking at a map and trying to identify specific areas that everybody was thinking they might be able to live with some. I don't know. I guess you could identify it as compromise to some extent. Anyway, there was some discussion on trying to identify specific areas on Mount Charleston in particular where trapping would be limited or would be restricted to box or cage traps, and we struggled with finalizing it at the meeting, so direction was given to staff to go try to help put that together. And in the meantime, I've seen a little bit of traffic from from the interest groups. It's none of the committee members have actually been involved with that, where they're trying to, you can see that they're trying to work on some language, trying to identify some areas that they basically were in agreement with handling. So I think we got a lot further than we had expected. In my mind, we did. It's a difficult process. People are really cutting through what their beliefs are, trying to figure out where they want to plant their feet. And I thought it was a productive meeting. It was a little bit painful. We didn't quite do the O.J. Simpson thing through the airport, but we were close. And we all got home. So we had to kind of rush through the last couple of agenda items, and I appreciated everybody's willingness to kind of defer those to a future meeting here, and I promise that we'll get to those issues and we'll give them a good fleshing out, even though we cut them short in Las Vegas. So I didn't know if Jack or Jeremy had anything to add, but
we cut them short a little bit during the meeting, but I'd like to say we went out of our way not to cut anybody short on the tour, whether it be the trappers or the Humane Society people. We went out of our way to spend time with them, learn their issues, go with them. The last site we went to, we basically needed a flashlight to see what they were trying to show us. That's one thing I do want to point out, is we went out of our way to see the area. That was a worthwhile trip for, I think, all three of us, being from northern Nevada. We've looked at it on maps. We've heard one interpretation from one side of what the area looks like and then another interpretation from the other side. It was extremely beneficial to see it ourselves, to get a feel for it. There was a lot of discussion around what we did in Washoe County and what we're trying to do in Clark County, and there was some discussion brought up that, hey, there's 2+ million people in Clark County and 400,000 people in Washoe County. But when I looked at the terrain we were talking about, season of use, type of use, the two seem to match up fairly well for where we're trying to go. The trail situation we had in Washoe County matches up fairly well with the situations we have in Clark County, and trying to use the same rules to apply, and as what Dave said, we've directed staff to try to get something that works. So.
No, Jillian.
Commissioner Drew?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. It was great to spend a day in the field and see the terrain that we're talking about, and I appreciate everyone who took part in the tour and the Trappers Association for their presentation. It was very informative and helpful, not only on this issue, but on all the issues going forward. So that was worth its weight in gold for me. I guess the only thing I'd point out is we did make a motion to come back to the committee as kind of a starting point with some draft regulations, and in my opinion, I would rather see the committee kind of facilitate the process and see the outside groups do what they can and do their best to come up with something that works amongst them, because in all honesty, yeah, I've seen the terrain, I know what the issues are now, but I'd rather see the folks from down there bring us something that makes sense, and if we have to arbitrate the differences, that's what we have to do. But I really think we've got a starting point now, and I'd like to see them work on that some more before the next time we discuss it. So that's kind of where I'm at this point.
It was an interesting dynamic. Had everybody's looking at the same map. You had people trying to describe it from all different interests, and the frustration is that everybody was still so guarded that they were afraid that the way you were describing, that somebody was trying to describe this was trying to, wasn't quite worded to properly describe it. But the challenge was, okay, so how would you describe it? And people couldn't describe it any better, and that was the challenge. And that's the problem with it. On a map, you can see it. And I think generally speaking, folks were generally okay with the map. But when you tried to put it in writing, things fell apart. And so we kept telling everybody, don't lose sight of what everybody's talking about. It seems like everybody's okay with the general concepts have been thrown out. The challenge is putting it in writing that they can be properly enforced, and that was the trick. But hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed, and we'll keep plugging through. But I think we're going to make some progress here on that, and time will tell.
Just a general question. We've got a set of regulations up in Washoe County, and is there going to be some symmetry between that up there in this, or is it apple and an orange, or what is the, what's the thought there?
I think we're hoping for symmetry. Yeah, I mean, we definitely were hitting all over the chart. But I think some of the discussions that I had heard at the end, again, you know, we've got the interest group sitting at the table doing some stuff, and we're largely trying to facilitate that process. And, you know, I was hearing a few things that would draw us towards being very similar, so I'm hopeful that that's where it heads.
Yeah.
Were you guys picking that up too? I wouldn't say that that's exactly where it's headed right now, but I think that the hope is that we'll get there.
Okay, any additional questions, comment from the commission? Commissioner Howell?
It doesn't appear that we're going to be voting on any policy or trapping regulation at this time. The only thing I would caution the committee is I know the word compromise has been used several times, and I just want to point out what it got you with the anti-bear people when you compromised for that Tahoe Rim Trail. The anti-bear people are still anti-bear hunters, and the anti-trapping people are still going to be anti-trapping. So you give up something, you gain nothing. That's my opinion.
I have a comment to that. I don't believe during the bear or the trapping committee meetings or the decisions that have been made to this point have compromised or given up anything. It's doing the right thing. There's a difference between giving something up and doing the right thing. In my mind, we've done the right thing.
Okay, this is a action item, so I think I'm obligated to take it out to the public. Any public comment on the report that Commissioner McNinch made, as well as the comments from the other committee members on that committee? Any public comment on that? Come on up, Joel.
For the record, Joe Blakesley, President of Nevada Trappers Association. We probably are going to have to get back to some symmetry with Washoe County, because I gave a report on this to our coalition the other day, and there are more than 2 groups involved in this. I've had a number of hunters express concern about just drawing a line around a map because they think they're next. So we're going to need to involve the hunters on this rather than just the trappers. So we probably need to not rush this through and talk about it maybe in terms of trails again and that type of thing. So, but we need to get the hunters in on it.
On the table? I can go grab that.
Any additional public comment?
I got every.
Paul?
I got Suzanne.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark Cab. After our meeting the other night, I did talk with several of the trappers informally out in the parking lot after my cab meeting, and that had attended the meeting that you guys had up at Mount Charleston and the workshop. One of their concerns is that where they saw things headed with the committee is we're starting to become more of a dog protection on Mount Charleston than we are really setting up a regulation that protects overall things. And so they would like you guys to be considerate of the fact that the number of animals, even though people came and testified at the Clark County cab meeting, I had 2 people that came and that had animals that were trapped in the last 15 years and showed pictures and things. Even though that does occur, trappers' jobs are to, you know, avoid trapping animals at all cost, and when they do take responsibility and help for those things, as we start looking at setting distances for animals, dogs and hiking trails up there, come back to one of the things I think that one of my board members, Mike Reese, talked about, which is look at the protections that we give our children around school zones and how we protect children in our residential areas around school zones, and look at that versus what we're doing around trails for a limited number of animals and a limited number of animals that are going to be there during the trapping season. You may have millions of people visit Mount Charleston during the summer months, spring through summer months, and maybe even early fall, but during the trapping season, we don't have that. I do know that there are individuals that are looking to bring forth a petition to basically restrict hiker access during trapping season as a countermeasure to what's going on. So this is only getting crazy, but I think we need to be realistic about what we need to do to protect animals and humans. and not do something that's so restrictive in protecting animals that it doesn't make any sense to what we do to protect our own children. Thank you.
I think he took that out of the other granting program.
Okay.
Grant award.
Mr. Moldy, come on up. Dr. Moldy.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Don Moldy Reno, representing myself. I'm a little confused after what Mr. Blakesley said and some of the other comments. I thought that SB 226 wanted something in the law by the end of the year. And, you know, it's upon us here fairly soon. And I'm also thinking about how unhappy the legislature was with the DREAM Act not being implemented its last session, and actions that it took then to be sure that it would be implemented. So, you know, I would rather that we solve the issue here, not in the legislature in that sense, because I think it's your job. And I think people are willing to work on it. I don't want to see any backsliding on this, and something has to happen by the end of the year. I also want to remind you that I'd like to be on the Trapping Committee's agenda at some point, since I've been doing my own work on certain issues relating to trapping. So, Dave, while you're collecting a series of items, could you add me to it? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, this is part of the confusion is that the SB 226 stuff has to be turned in here, and we're going to be dealing with that separately. What we're talking about with the Mount Charleston stuff is not part of that. Even though we're dealing with trapping issues and they're all intertwined in many, many ways, the SB 226 stuff is separate. That has come back from LCB. I'm anticipating it moving through the commission tomorrow. Today's the first hearing of it, and tomorrow, or the workshop, and then tomorrow I'm anticipating that it'll move forward, at which point that'll start down the final processes of becoming a regulation and review by the LCB legislative committee to get that formalized. So, you know, it is very convoluted, and if people have questions, I get it wrong still to this day. So I rely on staff to help me explain it. Rob's really good at it. So if you have any questions or any concerns with the SB 226 stuff, please let me know. We'll see if we can walk through it and make it and explain it. We should be able to explain it. It is complicated. There's still a number of steps. These other items are going to follow a similar pathway as we move forward through this stuff. It is certainly my intent as the chairman of this committee to address these issues in some fashion. And I'm not going to sit here and say that every issue that's brought to us that the committee is going to recommend, is going to deal with and recommend to make recommendations to the commission. There might be other ways of handling those things, because what we are getting is a little tit for tat. And to be quite frank, that's not something that we're going to get ourselves tangled up in as a committee. I mean, if everybody wants to throw things out because somebody else threw something else out, that's between the groups and the interest groups. And we're going to hear, we're going to listen, and we're going to be cognizant to what's going on around us. But whatever tiff is going on between the interest groups, we're going to try to avoid staying out of that. We're going to deal with our business. And it's my intent to address these issues up here, not allow it to go to the legislature. If there are items that can't be worked out or this commission doesn't come to some agreement on, then I guess that those potential is out there. But you know, we're really hoping that the interests that are involved figure some stuff out that work. You guys come to the compromise. We'll make the decision on whether we're going to move it forward or not. If you don't, then you're leaving it in the hands of this committee and commission to do things, and you know, we'll make decisions based on what we think we need to do. And so we really appreciate the discussions. I was impressed, actually. I didn't think we'd ever get to it. There was a map actually thrown on a table, and a whole bunch of people got around the map and started talking about stuff. I really didn't see that happening down there. So the willingness is there, I think, at least in some arenas. I do believe that the willingness is there, and we can't encourage you enough to continue down that path. If you were to bring us something that people can all generally agree on, it's going to get a lot of traction. So,
yeah, and maybe just to make it very specific, SB 226 is dealing with trapping around residences, within a certain distance, and the issues in Mount Charleston dealt with trails and roads and campgrounds and other high-use areas that were beyond SB 226. So we are going to hopefully be approving the SB 226 regulation at this meeting, and but the committee is going to continue to move forward with the issues that were raised down in southern Nevada, and there it sounds like some language on a new regulation, an additional regulation on that, something along the lines of the Washoe County regulations for trails that we've dealt with in the past. And so that's the explanation. And then on top of that, we'll talk about some other stuff the department's going to be doing. We have a soft rollout on that tomorrow, and then obviously it moves on even from there on some of the statutory issues, 96-hour trap registration. So that's the game plan. So okay, so let's take a look.
I got a bunch of cards on it.
Okay, so we're in public comments, so we have some cards. Go ahead.
Karen Taylor.
Karen Taylor, Washoe County resident. I'm addressing Commissioner Howell's comment about compromise. Commissioner Howell, I actually, as a Nevadan, I really appreciate the way that the Trapping Regulation Committee has been working with the public and the various interest groups. I really appreciate the way that they have negotiated the process of compromise, which I believe is the cornerstone of our nation. I think that compromise gives NDOW more credibility, much more credibility than they've had in years. Thank you.
Trish Wayne.
Trish Swain from Trail Safe Nevada. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. I don't have a lot to say at this point because I too appreciate the way that the process is going, the way that the issues are being sorted out, the hard work of the Trapping Regulation Committee. And so I'll save any discussion of specifics until possibly tomorrow, except for some very small language changes within the what you're calling the SB 226. I guess I think of it as the congested areas, but we're talking about the same thing. Other than that, we are very pleased with the progress that's being made, so I thank you.
Thank you.
Joel Blakesley.
I already did.
Peter Shepard. Rich Sanders.
So there's that.
You want to just, I can go through it.
Any additional-
Marked 9 and 11, so most
Okay.
might.
Any additional members of the public want to speak on this particular, the Trapping Regulation Committee report and the issues that were brought forward? Go ahead.
Randall Stolborough, and I'm a geologist here in Elko County. Got a small business in gold exploration, pretty successful. But I am impressed as well. Having two groups that are opposing each other come together to work out their differences. I really am impressed with that because this is such a, it sounds like it's such an emotional issue and passionate on both sides. So having two groups come together and work things out, to me, is impressive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and seeing no further, but I just want to make a comment, and this is, this commission would be hamstrung in a major way if we had to deal with the minutia that has been taken on by this trapping committee, Trapping Regulation Committee. The amount of time that they have spent is unprecedented. I think I don't know, at least in the time that I've been on the commission, there's been no committee that has taken on more detailed analysis of an issue and kept this commission moving down the road, because the amount of time that they've put in is just amazing, and I really do appreciate it. And that if you think about that, having to, us having to deal with it at this level is would just be I don't know if it could be done. And so, to have the committee members invest that amount of time, I really appreciate it, and I hope everybody else sees how that process is really facilitating and getting us down the road on this very, very charged issue. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, then seeing no further public comment, I'll bring it back. It's an action item, but do you envision anything at this point? Sound like, based on the testimony, that we're okay. So I'll go ahead and move on then